Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here we are. The moment has finally arrived for the final season of The Flash. We just had the official Season 9 premiere on the CW, and we are here to talk about it because, man, it's crazy. The 9-year journey that we have been on with this show. And it also, by the way, just feels weird to be doing another episode review and breakdown because, first of all, I haven't done an episode review and breakdown in general in like months now. But specifically for the Arrowverse and especially The Flash. Like, I didn't even review much of Season 8. So, but, it's the final season. So, I'm coming back to watch it and to review it and talk about it on the channel because this is a big deal. It's the final season. It's not only the final season of this show, but also is kind of the swan song to the Arrowverse as a whole because we know we're getting cameos from all these crazy different Arrowverse characters and all this stuff. And so that's going to be super exciting. But even more than that, of course, is the final run of The Flash, because this has been the highlight of the Arrowverse, because it's definitely had its ups and downs. The first couple seasons, I'd say seasons 1 through 4, I loved. Season 3 and 4, it started going downhill a bit, but I loved those seasons. Season 1, 2, and 3, those are some of my favorite seasons of TV I've ever seen. And then you got season 5 and 6 and season 7, which were not the greatest. Season 8 definitely went up in level here and there, but still wasn't perfect. But now we have this season 9 premiere. It's going to be a 13 episode season, and we're diving into this final season of The Flash. And I gotta say, so far, we've only seen one episode, but I think it's off to a great start, and I'm really excited to see where we take it in the other 12 episodes of this season. But without further ado, guys, we're going to waste no more time. So, of course, quick spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out on the CW. But for now, let's talk about the Season 9 premiere, the final season of The Flash. So as with a lot of other shows, when they're doing their final season, they'll bring back a lot of characters and actors from previous seasons that we haven't seen in a while. So I love how we open up this episode with the return of Tar Pit. So that was really awesome to see. Obviously we've seen announcements of all these different characters and actors that were returning for this season. This was not one I knew about. So I was really excited to see Tar Pit back here, even though it was just for this beginning opening scene and it didn't even end up being real. But still, it was cool to see. I think the CGI looked even better than it did in season 2. I remember really enjoying that character because I was thinking like, oh man, I really wish we could get a Clayface in live action because this looks cool. I would love to see Batman versus Clayface in live action. That would look awesome. But Tar Pit was great, so I love seeing him featured here. So this episode opens with Tar Pit attacking Central City, and Team Flash, including Frost, actually take him down. But then things get a little funky here when everybody starts like glitching out and dying. And that is, of course, when Barry wakes up from a nightmare. Kind of funny how like he wakes up from this nightmare and is like screaming and all this stuff. Iris is just sound asleep right there. Like she's just, honestly, at this point, she's probably used to him waking up with all these nightmares. And she's like, oh, honey, just go back to bed. She doesn't even notice. So that's kind of hilarious. But then that, of course, sends us into the title card for the show, and then we jump into the new day of February 1st, 2023. And just imagine if this episode came out 1 week earlier, it would have been the same date, because 1 week ago was February 1st. That would have been pretty awesome, but unfortunately that was not the case. Maybe the season was originally intended to come out then, but it didn't for some reason. But anyway, so we see in this episode that, we got their day-to-day life. Things are going good for the most part. But the thing I want to highlight here is that there's now a new Captain Boomerang in town. Of course, earlier in the seasons when we had actually it was more particularly on Arrow, but we had Digger Harkness, played by Nick Terabee, and I believe that character died. But now we have a brand new Captain Boomerang here with the Owen Mercer version, which of course is the second Captain Boomerang from the comics. That's really cool to see. And he looks great here because, I like the original Captain Boomerang, but this is a much more comics accurate looking version of the character. The costume with the beanie and all that stuff. His boomerangs are much more powered up and just look really cool. So I really enjoyed the fight here. But also he can apparently teleport. So that was something I wasn't expecting, but it was kind of cool. But anyway, Captain Boomerang ties into this episode hugely, though, because what he's doing is he is trying to steal the battery of basically what is a portable particle accelerator. So when Barry is fighting him, he gets exposed to some of those particles, exposes those to Iris, and so that infects Barry's speed to the point where then basically they end up getting stuck in a time loop. It's Groundhog's Day. We're repeating the same day of February 1st, 2023, over and over and over again. And also I love how Cecile actually mentioned, like, oh, it's Groundhog's Day. So that was a cool reference. But this is a trope we see in movies and TV shows all the time now. One of the most recent examples, at least from what I've seen, was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the final season. They did an episode there, and I loved the use of it on that show. This episode, it wasn't like... I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I wasn't like against it either, because sometimes shows, when they do it, they just really run into the ground and it gets annoying after a while. But this one, it definitely, I don't feel like it overstayed its welcome. I feel like it had a nice balance between like, doing the full scenes at first and then switching to more of a montage format as we went on. So I enjoyed that. That was pretty cool to see. But the thing here is, though, another thing that we actually were teased with in the trailer for the season is that Barry has this map book, which basically he's cataloged all the information he has found about their future. And so he has this whole book which tells the whole future of Barry and Iris as a couple, when they're going to have kids, when Iris is going to get pregnant, she's going to win 2 Pulitzer Prizes, and the house they're going to buy, and Bart saying his first words on Joe's couch, and Nora chipping her tooth on the steps to their new house, and all this stuff. And it sounds great. It sounds like they're going to live this happy, perfect life. But Iris sees it from the other perspective of she doesn't want to live her life according to this book. She doesn't want it mapped out. She wants to just make her own choices and live life the way she wants to. So this is what kind of lends it to this episode being more of an emotional relationship episode for Barry and Iris, West Allen, because you really get to put the focus on their romance, the relationship, the struggles they've been through. And of course, by the end, Barry, realized that, they need to make their own story. They need to write their own future. So he ends up burning the book, blah, blah, blah. And I love how once they finally kind of accept this whole Groundhog's Day thing, this time loop, they decide, instead of like living our lives separately, repeating on this one day, let's live it together. So they spend the whole day together, they go on a vacation, they end up in a pool and doing all that stuff. So they're just having the time of their life. They're having the perfect day. And then it comes back to Captain Boomerang. So they go to stop Captain Boomerang. Iris actually goes with him this time. So they take him down a bit easier here. And then he actually, again, he can teleport. So he teleports away, but just before he does, he sets off a nuclear bomb, which of course Barry, he phases, he's able to absorb all of the energy, and he, saves the city, as you would expect. But we do get a little moment in here where Chester and Allegra kiss. So that was pretty cool, because I was really getting annoyed last season. I like their relationship and I want them to be together as a couple, but last season it was just so back and forth of like, will they, won't they? Especially with the whole Armageddon thing where like they were a couple in that, but then you go back to present day and it's like, oh no, that never happened. That was the future version. So that was really stupid. But now things are finally, I like that they didn't really they didn't have any other moments together in the episode. They kind of just jumped to the chase here and just got it over with, and like they kissed and I was like, oh, okay, cool, that's good now. So after this, the day is saved. You think we're all good, and Thawne was defeated last season, and now Captain Boomerang was defeated, but no, it's the beginning of the season. You got to set up all the big villains and the storylines that's going on here, because Captain Boomerang, he did actually escape, and they make the obvious assumption that he is working with somebody else, which we'll talk about in a second. But we do get a few other little tidbits here, like for example, Joe and Cecile have a conversation about maybe they think they should leave Central City. So that looks like kind of is going to be their trajectory throughout this final season. Barry and Iris decide to start trying to have a baby, which is interesting because in the map book, she's not going to get pregnant for another 3 months, and for all we know, they could start trying now and she won't get pregnant until like 3 months later. But they're, like I said, they're writing their own future, so they're going to start trying right now. But our big we get two big kind of ending teasers here. The first of which is Caitlin apparently messaged Barry to go meet her. So Barry goes to meet her, but when he meets her, it is not Caitlin. And it's not Frost either, because we were left off in a weird spot with Caitlin Frost last season. Frost died, and then Caitlin and Shieldblade, they were like, oh, let's bring her back to life. So we meet here an amalgamation of the two characters. Not like before where it was like it was like a split personality thing. No, this is a completely different entity that is like part Kaylin but part Frost at the same time. And so I'm really interested to see how this ends up working out because it's super confusing. And honestly, last season I really did not care about this storyline at all. But clearly we're going to be exploring it here in this season. It's going to be a big part of episode 2. So I guess we'll see how that goes. But the big thing here that gets me really excited is a little, I like to call it like the post-credit type stinger tease type thing. So we get this final scene at the end of the episode after the title card flashes up where Boomerang, Captain Boomerang, he takes this battery to this abandoned warehouse and he meets up with his partner, which of course is Red Death. So we're met with this this black blurring speedster who says all these deep voice modulated scary stuff, something about like Barry Allen is gonna go down and I'm gonna kill him, and all the classic villainy stuff. And there we are set up with Red Death, our main villain of the season, or at least one of our main villains of the season. And I love how at the end it actually flashes up the Red Death logo as well. Now for those of you that don't know who Red Death is, I don't want to spoil it for you, because that may be something they play up in the season as to like, oh, who is behind the mask of the Red Death and who's their identity and all this stuff. So if you guys don't know who it is, don't spoil it in the comments for people that don't know. I did do a video a couple months ago talking about some set photos that showed the person without the helmet, so we know who it is. It's no surprise to me, but I'm just really interested to see how they explain this villain's motives, where they came from, what their grievance is against Barry Allen, why they're doing what they're doing. But I'm really excited for this because it seems like we're setting up a version of the Rogues here with Captain Boomerang working with Red Death. I love that we're getting another speedster villain here in the mix. I think that's going to be really fun to see. And especially this more menacing, kind of mysterious figure of the speedster, kind of again going back to those earlier seasons of Reverse Flash and Zoom and Savitar, where it was kind of that big mystery of the identity of this character. And again, I don't know if that's going to be a big reveal or if they're just going to show it off right away. I'm not completely sure, but I'm really excited to see how they end up playing out this character, because this is a character that was teased seasons ago and we kept thinking like, oh, Red Death's going to be the villain of the next season. Now finally, the final season, we get Red Death. So I'm really excited for this one. But guys, that was the season 9 premiere of The Flash on the CW, Wednesday Ever After. Again, I really enjoyed this episode. I think this was a nice return to form of kind of the vibes of the earlier seasons of this show. And with their only being 13 episodes this season, 12 episodes left now after this first one, I'm really excited to see how this season is going to play out, how they're going to wrap up all these storylines, how they're going to send off the Arrowverse. It's just really exciting. And again, The Flash has had its ups and downs, but so far, season 9 is starting off with an up, and I'm hoping that it will stay true to that throughout the rest of the season and all these final episodes as well. But anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about the season 9 premiere of The Flash on the CW? What were your favorite parts? Do you have any thoughts, theories, and predictions for our next episode? I am, of course, going to be doing weekly episode reviews and breakdowns.